Welcome back. Hey. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back.
What's going on?
Welcome back to Is It Crazy or Is It God?
Yes.
Okay. We are talking about the Bible, people. Now, we're just talking about this. We're not pastors. We're not theologians. We're not Bible experts. We are Bible amateurs, and we welcome everyone, even if you aren't, especially if you're an expert. But even if you've never picked up the Bible before, we just welcome you to come and join us. Our aim is to attract and inspire a community of Bible readers to read along with us, because we're reading through the Bible for the first time, like cover to cover, like we're on a Bible reading plan. But, come and join us. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of wisdom, and there's a lot of things that we didn't realize were in the Bible, like you've heard of before, or it's a saying that you've heard, or it's something you didn't realize is in the Bible. Certain things are shocking, but it's a good time. So we welcome you all to come and learn along with us and read along with us. So yeah, you know what I'm gonna ask you.
Yeah.
How did you apply the word this week? Sorry, go ahead.
We're good on the sound check.
Oh, great.
Go ahead. You said
because it's a two-parter. It's either or, right? It's like either how did you apply the word this week, or what did you learn in the word this week? I think that's the question. I mean, listen, you say whatever's on your heart to say, okay? Because I think I might go in the opposite direction this week, like I did last week. I'm getting better, but I don't even know what I'm going to say.
What did
you learn in the word this week, or what did you apply? I think that's a better question, to be honest with you.
What did I apply?
How did you apply the word this week? How did you apply the word this week?
How did I?
Man, mine is a little tricky now that I think about it. It's not necessarily a specific word.
Yeah.
You want me to go first, or you got something?
Go first.
Okay, so as we've been doing this, and we've been this isn't the only thing we're doing, right? Obviously, we're reading the Bible together, but we have our other things that we do separately, like memory verses and devotions and like affirmations using the word and things like that. As we've been doing this recently, God has been like revealing some things to myself that I need to work on, and just about forgiveness and judging other people. And it's like crazy because I wouldn't consider myself to be like really judgmental, but like there's certain situations that I'll find myself in and I'll be like, well, they should have done this. Right. And it's like, well, who are you to say that? Right. Me. And one of the things that I realized is that this is kind of like it's not a revelation, guys. This isn't anything new. It's stuff that people already know. But like one of the things that I'm realizing is that it's one thing to be so the word Christian gets thrown around and it means something different to different people, I think. But like it's one thing to be a believer and believe that God died for you and believe that Jesus died for your sins and to be a believer of Christ. There's a totally extra step to be a follower of Christ, right? So I'm thinking about it like, even in the way, like if Christ, like thinking back in the Bible when Christ was actually on the earth and, in physical form and people were following him, they had to take physical steps to follow him, right? It's just like, either he's walking and you're walking with him or behind him or near him, or he's walking and you're not with him, right? It's like you're doing what he's doing, right? So to be a believer in Christ is one thing, and I think that's great, and I think that's, what saves you. But to be a doer of the word, to be a follower of Christ, you actually have to apply the word. And I mean, you can't do that if you don't know it. I mean, I guess you can, but it's got to be a little more difficult. And there's certain situations I find myself in, and I'm like, there's a choice, because it's like, oh, well, what does God say about this? A lot of times we don't even get there because we're like, I want to feel how I want to feel. But like if you're in a situation, especially like a crossroads or like a decision, and you ask God, or even if you're feeling in a way that's, just feels uncomfortable, and you ask God or you seek the word and you say, okay, what does God say about this? the thing that God says about it, a lot of times for me, I'm finding is an uncomfortable thing. It's like, oh, I don't really want to do that. I'm not trying to do all that. I just want to call myself a Christian and, get all the stuff that comes with that. Like, I don't really want to do this stuff because that's uncomfortable, right? So I'm being shown that about myself in different areas, just like, oh, well, you say you want to do this, but you're not forgiving. Or you say you're a Christian and you say you're a believer, but are you really a follower? And that's really kind of what I'm being struck with this week, because it's not that I've done anything super, horrible or anything like that. It's just my thought patterns and how I'm so apt to just go with my own emotions and say, well, no, this is how I feel, so this is how I'm going to react. Or this is how I feel, so I don't even want to ask God what he wants me to do because I'm just going to feel like this and act out of that. So it's like, that's just some transparency for you. Because, none of us are perfect, but I'm really understanding more about how wrong sometimes I really am. I guess I don't know what that means. How did I apply the word this week? I'm learning that I'm not doing it as much as I could be. Mm-hmm. That's my answer, right? Or that as I should be. That's my answer. Mm. It's my answer. Final answer. $1 million. Bring it. Okay. I didn't mean to do that. Oh, sorry, Instagram.
It's okay. We're all learning.
I gotta go live again. Sorry.
Okay. So, what did I learn? Very interesting what I learned this week about the Word of God. I'm finding out, I had a revelation that I wrote in my journal. I don't know if I should get it out because I don't remember exactly what I wrote. If I get it out, let me
go ahead. Go ahead. You know what?
Let me share this because I don't really like sharing what's.
I may or may not be having some technical
on Instagram. That's okay. It's all right. We're on YouTube. It's okay.
All right, so I'm just gonna try this again.
It's all right.
Hopefully I can do it, but if I can't, sorry.
I wrote today that this week I have been getting closer to God, and I found out that I have been uncomfortable, but by listening to God, I have started to develop consistency and discipline through routines, and it's a great thing. I feel like I'm changing as a person. I'm more calmer. Now listen, I'm human. I still get mad. I still get frustrated. But it's becoming less and less. And I really appreciate that, and I thank God for that. But today I wrote in my journal, right? So I have a journal, guys. Yes, I write in my journal every morning. I think it's a good thing to keep a journal. I think when you keep a journal, you get to just explain everything you feel out on paper and you get it out. You're not thinking about it. And if you do think about it, it's still written out. And you could just, I think journaling is a great way of just understanding how you feel. It's just real simple. I don't write like a page. I just write a couple sentences how I feel in the morning. I've been doing it for years, actually. This is my second journal. I've completed one. Anyway, I wrote my journal today.
Be right back.
I'm gonna wait till she gets.
No, go ahead. You wrote in your journal. I can still hear you. I'm just getting my phone. I'm okay.
Okay. All right. So, okay, I'm by myself, guys.
I can hear you.
What I'm talking about now. Now you're welcome to the James Show. So, no, all right. No, this is about God. Let's keep it there. So let me get to the crux of the matter. I said the act of discovering wisdom is seeking and fearing the Lord, and it begins a journey of insight, which makes me understand who I am. This is self-development, which means it's a mission to get close to God. Can't read the other stuff. It's too personal. So that's kind of what I believe I'm on, right? But I don't think I start developing that mindset and that way of thinking if I'm not seeking God. And I think it's changing my life. And I like it. It's really uncomfortable. I wake up really early and it's not fun. It's Faith tells me all the time, like, oh, you like it. I don't like waking up. I like sleeping, actually. I like eating food. And I like other things. That's it, you know? Like, I think that's, you know, of course, right? Like, I like the things that every animal likes. Sleeping, having sex, and eating food. That's what they do,
this
right?
guy.
I can say it, I'm married. I mean, listen, if I wasn't married, this is the thing. This is what people like, right? Everybody loves eating. Everybody loves sleeping. And everybody loves food. We have a cat named Buttercup. Those are three things she enjoys. You know, well, she's stitched up, so. But if she wasn't, she'd be.
Oh my gosh!
You know,
all right, we're going down.
No, I'm just saying. No, listen. Just listen to me.
I'm listening.
All I'm saying is that being kind of back to your point, right? Being uncomfortable is kind of the mission. That's what it is, right? Because I say this affirmation all the time, this Bible verse all the time. I believe it's Proverbs 3:5. Do not lean on your own understanding. Leaning on your understanding is comfortability. When you don't lean on your understanding, it's uncomfortable. Because you have to realize, as humans, we don't know anything.
Yeah.
So, and if you think you know everything, that's your ego. Because you don't. Like, this is the world that we live in. You don't know everything. That's it. And when you realize that and you're open and you'll have the ability to learn.
For those of you, well, you're not watching if you were on Instagram, but I've messed something up, so I just want to apologize. But I'm an amateur, like I said, so we're going to continue because we have some things. Thank you very much for sharing, honey. And thank you very much for holding us down so low. Well, I had to go ahead and handle that. It says we're live on Instagram, but I don't think we are because I don't see us, but that's fine because we're live on the tube of views. So here's what. This week we read we read 2 Kings 1 through 10. Gotta have a real moment here because, first of all, we wanted to read more, but like this is one of the struggles of trying to be consistent with anything. Like life happens, like you plan to do something and it doesn't happen the way you sought out to do it. But that doesn't mean you don't keep trying. So I just wanted to share that as like a real moment of like, we realized the other day we were talking, we're like, oh, we're official amateurs here. Like we've done something here. Like we've been on here for 2 years talking about, reading the Bible and all the benefits and all of the things that you kind of have to go through to read it. One of them being, learning these new words and pronunciations. Another being, what you're trying to do right here. Another being just the time, like trying to find the time that it takes to not only read, but to understand what you're reading and then to go so far as to try to like live by it. So there's like a couple of different levels there, but we're realizing that like, oh, if you're someone who aspires to read the Bible and, maybe you haven't found time or you feel like, oh, I'll get to it one day. I don't have the time right now. I don't have the space in my schedule or the energy, or I don't have the proper whatever accoutrement to do it, we can speak to you if that's you, right? If you're like, I really want to read the Bible, but I don't, I'll do it later. I just want to speak. We just want to speak to those people. I want to definitely tell you that you can find time to read it. You can find time to study it. It's going to take some juggling and some choreography in your schedule, but it's very simple to do. And one thing that struck me, we were listening to this Myron Golden video earlier this week, and he said something that really struck me. He said, "You so busy trying to hurry up and get through the Bible that the Bible's not getting through to you."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Oh my gosh." He's like, but let me be clear. If that's the only way you're going to read it really fast, go ahead and read it like that. Just if you're just trying to get through it. But I realized in that moment that wow, that's the sauce. Like you don't want to read it so fast that you don't even absorb what it's saying. Right. It's just like, don't you remember doing that in school? Like when it's your time to read out loud, you're reading the words out loud, but they're not sticking. And so that's not what we're trying to do here. And I'm only bringing that up is because we were reading 2 Kings. We were attempting to read 2 Kings 1 through 11, but we only got to 1 through 10, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. So we're going to answer the questions, but, when we get to it, there's a possibility that, there's some stuff. And additionally, and I'm going to let you speak after this, I feel like I'm talking about that. Additionally, there were some parts of this that I got so confused on, and that's okay too, because really when you're reading it and you don't understand it, that's why you have separate iterations. Like I'm a fan of the Passion Translation. I like the International Children's Bible. I think that's really fun to read because it really breaks it down in a way anybody can understand. And the easy to read version, you read the English Standard Version. I like the Amplified version. That's my main version. But even sometimes in here, I'm like, what just happened? And then I'll go and look it up, or I'll look up a word or something like that. So those are just things that I just wanted to put out there just to be transparent about. It's not necessarily easy. It's very simple, but it's not necessarily easy to fit all this stuff into your schedule. And hopefully you'll try it anyway. Okay. Mm-hmm. What say you? Would you like to get started, or do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, back to the point. Probably the children's Bible is probably the best iteration breakdown.
It's dope. I love. You know what I love? I love when I'm doing my memory verses, and I'm like, okay, I'll start with something that's very easy to understand, like I know how you feel about the New International Version. But I'll look at that. Sometimes I'll look at
it's the message,
the easy to read version. Well, you told me about the NIV too.
Yeah.
So so there's a couple of things. There's a couple of questionable or whatever controversial translations, including the Message, which kind of says something different than the original word sometimes. And then there's the NIV, the New International Version, which you have told me is not.
So different from the word.
It's not completely word for word when you think about the King James version.
The word is the truth.
But and then there's this one that I'm leery about. It's called the Free Bible Version, which I've only found that on the Bible app. It's really interesting because sometimes it'll break the verse down in a way that it didn't hit me in another verse, and sometimes it still reigns. It holds the meat and the truth of it, but sometimes it says something completely different. It's like, and if I was only reading that version, then I wouldn't necessarily get what the verse was saying.
Got it.
And so I like to be very careful about that, because it's like, I don't want to walk away with someone else's interpretation because I never sought out different versions. And when you see one version and then you see it again, and again in other versions, then you got the right takeaway from it. But when you read, for instance, there's times I've read the Free Bible Version of a verse and been like, that does not make it's not even like it doesn't make sense. It makes sense, but it doesn't say what the original version said. So it's like, right? If I were only reading this version, would I come away with the truth or not? You know what I mean? So you got to be careful. I definitely recommend the King James Version and then an easier version, like the easy to read, or the English Standard Version, or like you said, the International Children's Bible. That son is a beast. Like, from my experience, everything that I've read in that version it matched. It matched the other versions, and it's just simpler. Yeah. It's the simpler words. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't go into like the bigger words, but it makes sense. It completely says exactly what the other verses said. So anyway, don't want to get too far on a tangent on that, but that's what we do here because we're trying to inspire people to read the Bible, and these are just really good tips. Right. This is stuff that maybe your pastor doesn't have a chance to go over, or you maybe don't really talk to other people about this kind of stuff. So that this is what we're about, right? Yeah. Like we're going to share what we've learned in our journey here. But go right ahead, honey.
Yeah, I was looking at an Instagram clip, actually. I don't know. It was a pastor, and he said he actually put a verse in maybe ChatGPT or AI, or it might be new, but it was a Bible translation from the King James to Gen Z.
Oh, I don't even know what app that is. I know that.
Yeah.
Ashley.
I have to look at it, but I got to look at the clip again. I should have saved it. I might have sent it to you. I don't know.
I'll have to look. But I know Megan Ashley talks about this app called Bible Chat. Yeah. And it's kind of like an AI version of ChatGPT. Now, I will say this. I haven't tried ChatGPT for this, but there's this app called Chatster that I've looked, like I've asked. I mean, it's an AI tool, so you got to be careful with this. This is new stuff, But like, I will ask it a question like, what does the Bible say about this? Or tell me 10 things, for this, right? And I'll take it with a grain of salt because like nothing's the truth except the Bible. Yeah. So like,
but I think that it just took the Bible words and put it in the Gen Z. So it was talking like, I forgot which. I don't know if I'm gonna find it now.
I mean, listen, if you know what it is, comment below.
It was calling like God, like Big G.
Oh.
And it was like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I'm gonna have to find it. But it was a pastor that put the New King James Version into either it was an app or AI where it broke it down to where it's Gen Z. So I might have sent it to Faith, or I might have been like, no. I could have just been drifting in the realm of Instagram. I don't know, but let's get to it. So for 2 Kings 1 through 4, we read 2 Kings 1 through 10, and then next week we'll start with 11 and then move on. So 2 Kings 1 through 4. This is the breakdown. Elijah calls fire from heaven, which is very interesting. Elijah's taken up to heaven. Moab sacrifices a baby. Elisha raises a son and feeds the multitude. So Elijah is a prophet, and Elisha is his understudy, but is a prophet as well. And we all know prophets are the messenger from God to us. So, prophets their whole mission is to follow God's commands, serve him, and then tell the kings, because back then they were kings, rulers, queens. The world is still, it's all one world. It's not broken up yet. People are traveling. There's there's still lakes, but like areas of land are being discovered and called things like Syria, Moab, Israel. All these places are starting to develop. So prophets are like the guys that every king should have a prophet, whether they're evil or whether they're good. There's a prophet they're going to lean on, and whether the prophets are evil, right? Because it's some prophets that the kings will listen to and counsel that are evil, that just they're yes men. They're not telling the truth. They're just agreeing with the king. A prophet from God, like Elijah or Elisha or Samuel, it's not going to be an agreement. They're coming with the truth. And the truth doesn't always necessarily agree with your understanding or your thought process. And some kings in high places don't like that. They want to have yes men. But anyway, so Elijah, the king, sends people, and then Elisha, a messenger comes to the king and says, "Hey man, you're going to die. You're not listening to God. You're listening to other gods." Back then, and probably still to this day, it's a lot of people worshiping false idols. But I think we don't know. I think the false idols have expanded from, back then it was just golden calves a lot. They loved the golden calf. And then the king sent over his messengers to Elijah, and Elijah was like, "Hey man, listen, I told you're not listening to God." And then he started sending fire. God started sending fire from heaven to get rid of these soldiers that were trying to come get Elijah. But so let's get to the question, actually. That's just like an explanation of what prophets are during these times.
Thank you for that.
So the question is, Elijah right now, he is the second person to not die and go to heaven. The first was Enoch that we talked about.
Right.
Now, what I'm understanding is Elijah got into the chariots. Elijah's walking with him. Elisha's like, "I'm not going to leave you." Elijah was like, "I'm out. I'm going to heaven." Chariots of fire took him to heaven. And listen, for a person to ascend and go to heaven to God without dying.
Yeah.
Without dying, right? And we're not including Jesus because Jesus is God, right? So Jesus knew he had to sacrifice for our sins, to die on the cross, and then come back, raised again 3 days later. That was his Masonic mission in life, to save us from ourselves, right? Two regular humans, as so far we've read, have gone straight to heaven without dying. They're walking around like you and me, and then God takes them. What I'm realizing is that their walk with God is different than all the other prophets. Even Moses passed away, and he's considered one of the greatest.
For sure.
Right? But Enoch and Elijah went straight to heaven. And I think that Elijah they were really close. And I think it's one more person, but I don't think we've gotten to them yet. But so far, it's only been two. And they are really, really the level of relationship they have with God provides them to go. So that's what this is about. Elijah goes straight to heaven. So here's the question. Okay. Elijah is one of the only two people who went to heaven.
Guys, we did not reread this.
No, because the second point was Elijah's taken to heaven. I was like, okay, I got to
talk about that. We did not reading these questions ahead of time. It's so funny the way that the questions always.
Yeah, it says the other one is Enoch. Like I just said, it's very rare. It's only been two out of a lot. It's been a lot of prophets, man. Why do you think, let me ask you, why do you think, because I kind of answered it already, but why do you think God chose to do that? To
take them without dying. And let me just say, when it comes to Elijah, they even made a big deal out of it. Like, well, go find his body. And they sent some people out to go find his body, but they couldn't find it because it wasn't on earth. God took it. I think that, I think that God does things like that for reasons that we might not. And this is one of those questions where it's like there's probably no right answer. It says, what do you think? Why do you think God does that? I think that it's one of those things that keeps us wondering. I think, just thinking about God, about Enoch and Elijah, just thinking about the similarities that they had, they were pretty bold. So I could speak about Elijah because I don't really remember that much about Enoch. I don't know if they really went into a whole bunch of detail about Enoch, but when I look at Elijah and he has this strong faith, like he will just like believe, like I was saying last time, like I don't know if I would have that much. I don't think I have that much faith to be like, hey, you bring your God, I'll bring my God, and let's build a fire. And my God's going to build a fire, right, in the rain, or not in the rain, but it was like water involved.
Yeah, my God is
that's making it even
that's what he was saying.
More improbable, right? It's just like you're working, not even against, but like there's miracles happening here, and to put it on the spot like that and be like, oh, we're about to see a miracle right now because my faith is so strong and my God's going to show up and show you. Right? I don't have that much faith. So I feel like those who are bold enough to have that much faith and who walk with God in the way that Elijah did, I think it's for God to do that and just to take them from the earth with no death. It means something that we maybe can't comprehend yet. But what I can observe from it is that, it doesn't have to be painful. It doesn't have to be, death doesn't have to be, right? Because we would still consider him dead by our standards here on earth. And I think we look at death in the wrong way sometimes. Like, I don't think that it's a mourning period. I think it's like a celebration. And whatever that person left you as an example, right? Like if we're thinking about Elijah's examples, it's like, now it's seared in our minds like, oh, this is the type of person he was the whole time he was here. This is what he did. And so this is what he stood for. So to honor him would be to sort of not emulate it, but like keep that in mind and look at what God did for him. Right. So I think that we would still consider him dead by our standards, even though God took him from the earth. Right. We would still think like, oh, he died, but he didn't really. And I think it really speaks to sort of the weird way we look at death, like it's bad. And like, even though we all know that it's going to happen to us and to everyone, it's like, there's no stopping it. No one in our history has been able to stop it. And so we know it's an occurrence that's going to happen, and yet we don't necessarily embrace it. And I think God has shown through Enoch and Elijah that, if you do it in the way that I'm telling you to do it, then it doesn't even have to be any bit of painful, right? It's just going to be over. Like we all know it's going to be over at some point for us. But, we think about how painful it's going to be or how detrimental, you know what I'm saying? Like how damaging it is or something. And that's not necessarily the case. So I hope that made sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So once again, my thoughts on it. With Enoch, I think that he lived a really close relationship with God, whereas I think he was so close to God. Like, I think with Enoch, I believe the story was small and short. Oh, I guess we're on. Oh, we're on Instagram. Okay.
Yeah.
So Enoch was fasting and praying so consistently with God, and we're talking about this is before David. I think Enoch might have been. Was it before Abraham? Maybe after.
I feel like it was in Genesis 5.
It was, yeah. So I think it was maybe before Noah. Like he was praying and fasting to God constantly. And I think God was like, you know what? I don't even think you need to be here because you're worshiping me and loving me and you're trying your best, and these other humans are far, far beneath you.
He was prior to Noah, yes.
Yes. And God was like, here we go. Because remember, prior to Noah, and the reason that God flooded the earth, because there was so much wickedness. So he probably was like, hey, it was probably so much wickedness that Enoch stood out because he constantly worshiped God. He constantly was fasting. He constantly was praying. Fasting is a version of getting close to God. I do intermittent fasting, but I'm talking about fasting. No water. No, Moses did it. 40 days, 40 nights. Jesus fasted. That's just the way it is. Right? So that's one thing about Enoch. Elijah believed and had so much confidence in God and the acts that he carried out. And God was like, all right, I think you need to come. Because Elijah showed, and it's nothing wrong. It's God just has a plan for us, right? So you got to understand that Moses' plan was to do exactly what he did. David's plan was exactly to do what he did. And Elisha's plan was exactly to do it. Elijah was destined to be brought to heaven. And before he did it, he raised the widow's son back from the dead. He showed all of the illegitimate prophets that the king had who were built on lies and false idols to show them who the real living God is, because God wants Israel to serve him, not a false idol, because God is a living God that can deliver on his promises. God can change your life because he's living. He's a being. So I think when you show people the power of God through you, I think it's immaculate. And I think that's one of the reasons that Elijah went to heaven.
Yeah, it's like an example.
Yeah.
You know, and I just wanted to give a visual so that people could understand what you were saying. I'm going to try to make it even bigger. So if you could see, like, I haven't scrolled down a little bit because we see Adam at the top. But then when we come down here, we see Enoch, and he went to heaven before death, right? And then you kind of go down and see Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and it ends at Moses. This particular chart ends at Moses. I don't know where this came from. I just Googled it, y'all, but
Enoch was
I believe it to be true because it aligns with what I remember reading. But you know, like I said, you gotta be careful out there on the internet. Not everything is real, but this, to me, it looks like it shakes out. Yeah, okay, so let's move right along then.
All right, so 2 Kings 5-8 talks about Naaman healed of leprosy.
Oh, yeah.
Elisha performs miracles. Ben-Hadad's murder. And King Joram and Isaiah. So Naaman, funny story about Naaman that I realized it's not a funny story, but he had leprosy. They call him, he was a leper. That's what you call people with leprosy. Just, I believe back then you had to be identified, right? Same thing as that.
Yeah, it's like,
diabetic. Well, not even that. Like right now, if you're diabetic, you're diabetic. You don't have diabetes, you're diabetic. So it's just, a leper is just describing what you have. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just what we do nowadays. You know, like, oh, I'm a diabetic. We name it so you can, it's for everybody, you know, because you can't do certain things. You're telling people what you have. So he was considered a leper because he had leprosy, and he wanted to get healed by God. So he went to go see Elisha, and a prophet. Now, Elisha is different from Elijah because Elisha actually, before Elijah went to heaven, Elisha actually asked, he asked and said, I'm going to do double of what you did because Elijah is known for a couple miracles. He raised his son. He started fire.
He did. Okay, and that's what I wanted to point out. Let me point something out because I think Elijah did. Excuse me, Elijah. I think did 7 miracles, and so Elisha.
There we go.
Elisha wanted to do double. So in my mind, okay, let's do the math. 14 miracles.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that some of the miracles I'm noticing were the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he did the same thing for a woman and raised her son from the dead as Elijah did previously with someone else. Mm-hmm. And the fire thing, like Elijah was like, that was the thing that I most notably recognized, like my faith was lacking. I'm like, wow, I guess I wouldn't ever do that. Or I don't say ever, but I wouldn't do that right now. Mm-hmm. But Elijah was so, faithful to God. He knew that, that God would come through. So, I thought that was interesting. And also, so like he asked for double. And this just brings me back to like even King Solomon. Mm-hmm. When you ask God for something and it's in his will, he's going to give it to you. And it's so interesting because a lot of times I think we're just not asking God, right? We're just assuming that, I can't have that, or, that's not, like we're not having these conversations and prayers with God, and we're not listening to what he's saying back to us, and we're not looking at the opportunities that we're having to prove God right. We're just kind of like, there's that old joke about like the person who died and was saying like, God, I asked you to save me. He was like, I'll send a boat, a train, what I'm saying? I'll send a boat, a helicopter, and all this other stuff, right? So it's like, I think we pray for stuff, but then we don't really kind of like do what it takes to go and grab the blessing. Mm-hmm. But then in this case, Elisha asked for that double, right?
No, but it was put on him too. And
he did it, and God granted him what he asked for.
Yeah. So the Naaman, it's so funny because we do this all the time. This is what I learned from the story. So he went to Elisha, and Elisha said, hey, listen, I'm going to give you these instructions. Now, remember, Elisha is a prophet. He's getting directly from God. He says, I want you to go to the river, and I want you to take off your clothes, wash 7 times. After you wash 7 times, then you'll be healed. I
want to correct you a little bit on that. Because he went to Elisha's house, but Elisha sent a messenger out. And that was the first gripe that Naaman had. Yeah. Because he went to Elisha's house, like this guy who has leprosy, and he said, hey, help me with this, whatever. And first he went to somebody else who was just like, it was a king, I think, and said, whatever, that's not my job. And then, I'm paraphrasing here. Mm-hmm. And then when he got to Elisha's house, there was a messenger that was sent out. Let's just assume like it's a butler or something, right? Or like someone who came out and Elisha sent the message.
Yeah, the messenger did something. Okay.
Elisha sent the messenger to him and said, go watch. And this is 2 Kings.
The messenger was named Gehazi.
2 Kings 5:10. Yeah. Elisha sent a messenger to him saying, go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, Jordan River, and your flesh will be restored and you will be clean. Mm-hmm. Right? And one of the Naaman's issues with that, he's like, I thought he would at least come out to see me. Right? It's just like, okay, well, what are you really coming here for? Are you coming here for what you're asking for, or did you want something else? Because that's not what you didn't say, I'm going to go see Elisha so he could see me. You wanted to, you want a secure sort of product or you want to have the end result that you're seeking. And so it might not look the way you thought it was going to look. Like he told you what to do. And he was just like, oh, hey, you come say it to my face. It's just like, chill, buddy. So, okay, please continue. I just had to go and say that.
So, he got angry with that. And then he was like, why can't I do it with the other rivers? Why the Jordan? And he said, listen, just follow these commands. They're from the Lord. So then Naaman listened, washed 7 times, and was healed. Now, here's a key story, I think. a key aspect of the story is sometimes we don't follow the simple instructions of God because we think we're looking at a different picture that we have for ourselves. And God's like, hey, just go do this. You'll be okay. He's like, no, it's other rivers that have done immaculate things that are because you gotta realize back then, God is if you're seeking out prophets of God, you know the miracles that he's done because you believe. And he's like, what's so special about the Jordan? What's so special about the Jordan River? And the great thing about the story is now the Jordan River is special because of him, right?
Yeah.
Now it's a miracle because of him. But God just gives you simple instructions.
You gotta let God use you.
You gotta let God. You gotta follow God's instruction, and he did. And now, he's done with he got healed with leprosy.
And they said his skin was restored to like that of a baby skin or something.
Goodness, of a little
but you know
child.
what's funny to me? I always feel like God is in the water. Like that's my own thing. That's just the same anything in the Bible like that. You know what I'm saying? But that's my own like sort of like belief, I guess, is that like, you know, water is so magical in the way that it nourishes us. It you know, it can be healing. Sometimes you're sick or sometimes you feel really like sick or not well, and you just drink some water and it kind of like makes you feel better. Also, there's all these miracles that happen with water, with Jesus walking on water, with the sea being split, with people being healed in the water. There was this one thing we read about like the water looking like blood.
Also, I'm about to say also water is powerful.
And I just feel like even when you look at these shows like with beach homes or lake homes and stuff, it's just so calming and soothing just to see the water going all in one direction. And to just like how magnificent it is that the water stops on the shore where it does. And like what keeps it from going over that? You know what I mean? So it's just like, I just feel like water is like miraculous, but this is another example of that.
Yeah, I mean, God created it. Okay. So, just like everything else God created, listen, it is a marvel of this world. This
question is funny. I just looked at it.
Oh, and we're going to tell the story, then we're going to get to the question. Now, Naaman knew, he was like, listen, God's not of this earth. I have gifts. I have gold, silver for you. And Elisha like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm good. God has me. Like, I don't need it. It's the point is, I'm doing this for you through God. God doesn't require those things, so I don't. I don't need gold. I don't need charity. You take it, please. I'm living good. God has blessed me. This is for you. And I think, you know, and then one of his servants, this is what you don't do. One of his servants went back to Naaman and said, hey, I'll take that. Yeah, you can give the gold to me and the silver to me. And he said, yeah, sure. Naaman didn't know. He was like, listen, you want it? Take it. This is
right. I'm so grateful for the.
I'm so grateful. I'm not a leper anymore.
Right.
Man, my skin is bomb. Listen, here you go. So he said, please take these 2 talents.
Talents of silver, yeah.
Talents of silver.
2 changes of clothes.
2 changes of clothes. Right? Hey, this big back there.
It's big right now. I'll take 2 outfits.
I'll take some outfits. All right. So then he said that he took him. Gehazi took him, and then he came back to Elisha, and then Elisha's like, "Where you been at?"
Right. Okay. Because what he did was he took the stuff and he went and hid it in the house or wherever they.
Elisha, where you been at? He was like, yeah. He was like, I didn't go nowhere. And he said to him, Elisha said, did not my heart go when the man turned from his chariot to meet you? Was it a time to accept money and garments, olive orchards and vineyards, sheep and oxen, male servants and female servants?
Basically checking him like, oh, are you going to collect on my behalf? Like, was it time for that? Is that what you did? Like, he wasn't getting ready to, Gehazi wasn't getting ready to tell the truth. But Elisha knew the truth.
So he was like, so okay, so here, this is what's going to happen since you lied to me. Since you lied to me, that leprosy of Naaman shall cling to you and your descendants forever. And Gehazi had leprosy.
It said a leper is white as snow.
Yeah.
I don't really know what that means. If you do know what that means and you're watching this, feel free to break it down in the comments for me.
I think leprosy changes the color of your skin.
Oh, maybe like vitiligo or something?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Which I don't sit as descendants. So knowing the Bible, that sucks.
And that's where I was going to say that.
Like if I was a descendant of this, and I'm reading the Bible, I'm like, oh, this is where it comes from. Thanks. Great grandfather.
That's wild.
You know, so that's just interesting. So, all right, let's get to the questions, and then we're going to wrap up.
Yeah, we're going to have to wrap up. We can't even get through the rest of it because
it's all good.
Which is good because we'll just pick up here next week. But this is a good point.
Yeah.
This is a good stopping point. But please answer the question. Ask the question.
All right. How is Naaman being asked to exercise humility? And what can we learn from our own journey towards humility?
Okay, so I'm going to start with first. It was a couple ways he had to exercise humility. Number one, he had to reach out and ask for help. Right? He asked somebody else. He asked the king of Israel in a letter, I think, before he asked Elisha. And the king of Israel was basically like, "Who do you think I am?" Right? Like I'm not here to help you with that. So then when he went to Elisha, he expected, remember, to go and see him in person. So how is he being asked to exercise humility? He had to go and do the thing Elisha said, even though he hadn't come out and seen him face to face. So I think he's showing humility in that way by just being sort of like obedient and not expecting to receive a certain type of treatment.
Leprosy.
Also, it does look like that. So, also, the other thing is, he ended up, Elisha, and this is how my interpretation, in 2 Kings 5:15 at the end, he says, and this is Naaman. Naaman returned to the man of God, and he and all the people in his group stood before him, and he said, "Behold, I know that there is no God in all the earth except in Israel. So now accept a blessing and gift from your servant." So that's when he tried to give him the thing. But it's like, in my mind, it's like, oh, okay, Elisha just brought someone to God because he did a miracle for him, right? He told him to go wash in the Jordan River 7 times. And now this man believes in God. So, I thought that it was humbling for him to come. Sorry for the siren, but it was humbling for him to come and have to do something that somebody's telling him, not even face to face. And then for him to come back and say, you know what, let me just bow down and realize that like your God is the God. And let me offer something, right? Let me give an offering because your God has been so good to me. And now it's probably his God, right? At that point. So I thought that was really humbling. And what can we learn for our own journey towards humility? That God's deliverance, like that God's blessings might not look the way that you think they should look. Right? There's certain things that happen to us that we think might be setbacks. There's certain things that we ask for and then we get something else. And it's not what we thought it would be, but it is a solution. And I think that's what we can learn about having humility is that like, yeah, it might not look the way you think it's going to look, but if it's a solution and you ask God for a solution, then it's probably from God. And so take what take what he's giving you as a blessing and enjoy it. That's what I would say.
Yeah. So this is very interesting. So Naaman was being asked to exercise humility because it wasn't what his thought process led him to be. What I mean by that, it wasn't his decision. He was mad because he had no control.
Yeah.
He had no control over where he goes to get rid of this leprosy, but he had to be humble and follow instructions from God to get exactly what he wanted in life. And that's, I think that's when he was being exercised to ask him, he was mad. He was, which we all are. You get mad, like, I'm not doing this. Why?
What?
What?
Right.
You know, like,
this isn't going to work.
It's not going to work.
You don't know that.
It doesn't align with my thought process. So I don't care. And you're wrong. Right? And instead of, he opened up and was like, all right, let me try this because it's different. And when he did it, that's being humble. Now, what can we learn from our own journey through humility? I read this morning, and I read this always. I read a proverb a day to keep the devil away.
Guys, that hasn't been proven, okay?
It does. That's what my God says. Listen.
Okay.
All right. Proverbs 11, and this is I read this today, this morning. Proverbs 11:2. When pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with the humble is wisdom. So humility, not only with that Bible verse, it's telling us that being humble, which means being open, listening, comes with wisdom, because you're looking at a different perspective in life. You're not only looking at your perspective and your blinders. You're willing to open up and realize, like, I might not know this, what I think I know. So let me listen and learn. Yeah. And I think that's what we can all take away from life, right? Is humble leads to wisdom, and then if you know what wisdom is, which is the fear of the Lord, it's just going to lead you down a path. Like I just said in my journal, is humble leads to wisdom, fear of God is wisdom, which leads to insight and knowledge, and that leads to integrity. It all coincides with one another. It's a path.
God built this so amazingly. Like, we can't even see all of the stuff that God has done. It's just like, it works. It's certain things that we just get to enjoy. And if we just follow God's way, it's you know what I mean? Like, it's just going to give you a bit of relief. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Than trying to figure it out on your own. It's like, it's already built. Yep. You know what I mean? So
ending in that, guys, we are going to end right now. Please join us next week. Now, this isn't our only channel. Faith also has a channel of Those Two Sisters, where
DCity Life
Sisters, where they just focus on what's going on in life, positivity, Black businesses. It's her and her sister Damita, known as Damita Jo, and she also has another content creation, Yes, I'm a Unicorn channel, where it's on YouTube, and she just breaks down planning and about life and God. And then I have Fourth Quarter, which I love sports. You can find me at Fourth Quarter. I just talk about sports, what's going on, my opinion, my perspective. Then I have Homecoming, HBCU podcast. I went to HBCU, shoot it with my friend Rose. She went to Howard, I went to Bowie. We just talk about
shout out to Rose.
News that we just keep up with the news of what's going on with HBCUs, and we just talk about everything about HBCUs, and it's awesome because there's a lot of hidden stories in there. So once again, we are out, and we love y'all, and we're gonna end on our saying.
Yes, don't take our word for it. Go to the source. Read your Bible.
All right, guys.
All right, thanks, y'all. Bye.
Peace.